What's up, movie fans? Stranger Things. This show that has been a part of so many people's lives for a decade now has finally come to an end. We just got the 5th and final season of Stranger Things. And this is a show that has been very special for me for a long time. I would say Stranger Things is especially special to me because it was kind of my first real TV show ever. I watched this show when I was like 12 years old, so I was kind of in the process of like transitioning from like watching Disney Channel sitcoms and cartoons and stuff to actually watching real TV shows, and Stranger Things I think was kind of the first one that I ever watched. Like, I watched this show with my parents, and I just remember when I started it just thinking that it was the coolest show I'd ever seen before, where like every episode just kept me hooked, and it was like scary, and it kept me on the edge of my seat, and I wanted them to find Will in season 1 so bad, and I fell in love with all of the characters, and it was just like such a special show for me. Ever since then, where like every time a new season came out, I have just like been hooked on the show for weeks after, obsessed with it. So yeah, Stranger Things Season 5, I was insanely excited for this season. I really was hoping that they were going to stick the landing and give me a great conclusion to one of my favorite shows of all time. And now Season 5 is out. Was it satisfying? It depends on who you ask. This season has been incredibly divisive all over the internet, where I have just seen like completely opposite opinions on it, where some people are saying that it was a super satisfying conclusion. Other people are saying that it ruined the entire show and it is a terrible conclusion. Where do I land? I'm more on the first half, but I also kind of understand where the other half is coming from. I liked Stranger Things Season 5. I liked it way more than most people. This is mostly going to be a positive review. And as a matter of fact, there's actually a lot of criticisms with the season that I think are kind of dumb, which I'll get into later. But I also do have significant problems with the series finale myself, and I do want to get into those. This is going to be a little bit of a weird review, because I feel like for me to talk about this season, I have to go volume by volume. Like, I have to go through my thoughts on the season as it came out. This will contain spoilers. If you have not seen the finale of Stranger Things, leave this video now. I can't talk about this season without getting into spoilers. Starting off, when Volume 1 of Season 5 came out, the first 4 episodes, I watched it, and much like everybody else when the first volume of this season came out, I liked it. I thought it was really good. I think what really made me happy about the first volume of this season is the fact that it feels way more epic and urgent than the first episode of any other season of the show, where every other season of Stranger Things kind of starts off a little bit slower, and then as it goes on, it ramps up until you eventually get to like the last few episodes, and then a bunch of craziness is happening. The first few episodes of every season are always a little bit calmer. When it comes to Season 5, this season recognizes the fact that we don't have time to be calm. we gotta just get straight into it. And so immediately you hit the ground running. At the end of the first episode, a Demogorgon attacks the Wheeler house, kidnaps Holly. Hopper and Elle get trapped in the Upside Down. Everybody else is in the real world trying to figure out what the heck is happening. And it's just like stuff is happening with all of the characters immediately. And I think that was a very wise choice to start the final season that way. I thought that the sequence in episode 2 where Holly is kidnapped by a Demogorgon was one of the most tense sequences in the show, where I watched that sequence and for a second, I thought they actually killed off Ted and Karen Wheeler. They didn't, and I'm not gonna lie, not crazy about that decision to make us think that they were going to kill the two of them and then not do it. I feel like they kind of chickened out a little bit there, which more on that later in the video, but still, I thought that entire sequence was super tense. I was super, interested in what's going on. Why does Vecna want Holly? I liked pretty much everything that happened in the first 4 episodes with every character, where I think the Duffer Brothers basically went okay, where within the main cast of this show is there still a little bit of drama? Where is there still, unresolved issues between these characters, and let's focus on that. Jonathan, Nancy, Steve, that's obviously something that has been unresolved, where I thought it was kind of resolved in season 2 when Nancy broke up with Steve, but in season 4 it was established that Steve still has feelings for Nancy, so you kind of have this love triangle going on in the first half of season 5 between them. They also kind of create conflict at places where it wasn't there, but it kind of makes sense for it to be there, where I actually really like what they did with Dustin and Steve, where the two of them have been, perfectly fine together for a while now. They've been best friends, but Dustin is dealing with the trauma of losing Eddie at the end of season 4, and so he's kind of acting a little bit colder towards Steve. And Steve, who is kind of ego-driven, sees this as, Dustin thinks that Eddie was better than him, so Steve kind of starts to be offended by that. And I actually did really like the conflict between them that they had in the first half of season 5. I wasn't expecting it, but it made sense. It worked to me. Then the other thing that they did that I thought was really wise was pairing up Hopper and Elle for the first half of this season, because I think those are two characters who have possibly the most interesting relationship in the entire show, but that relationship hasn't been focused on a lot since season 2, so pairing them up in the first half of this season, establishing that Hopper is still incredibly protective of Elle, still doesn't fully think that she can, do the things that she has to do. He's still a little bit hesitant to let her actually make her own choices and fight her own battles. I think it was a great move to pair them up in the first half of the season, establish the conflict between them. And then the best part of the first half of season 5 easily was Will Byers. Will has been a character that I have thought has been done so dirty by this show since season 2, where I felt like for the past 2 seasons, they haven't really known what to do with him, where, he is exploring kind of these issues that he has with his own self-doubts and him not really being comfortable with his own identity. But all of that stuff is kind of off to the side being explored. It's never been at the forefront of anything. And so in the first half of this season, I was super surprised by how much focus they put on Will, but I was really happy about it, where, like, they explore the fact that Joyce has been insanely overprotective to kind of a suffocating extent in the past few seasons when it comes to Will. And so in the first half of the season, you have this very unexpected duo created between Will and Robin, where Robin, who is this character who used to be uncomfortable in her identity, but ended up, like, becoming more open and honest as the show went on, and you have her being paired up with Will and kind of helping him make the same kind of decisions that she did and be more open and honest about himself and the fact that he is gay. Like, all of that stuff was really interesting to me because, like, Will and Robin is a pairing that I never would have expected for this show. But it's kind of the exact pairing that they needed to have to give Will a more interesting arc in the first half of the season. And then the reveal that Will had powers at the end of the first half of this season, I thought was incredible. I loved all of the stuff between Will and Joyce, where I just, like, loved their conversations with each other, where Will eventually does stand up to her, tells her that she's being too overprotective, and then in the next episode, you have this really sweet conversation between the two of them, where Joyce basically tells him, yeah, I'm overprotective of you, but that's because I love you and I lost you once and that's not gonna happen again. Like, yeah, no, I really loved pretty much everything that happened with every character in the first half of season 5. Like I said, I loved the way it ended. I loved the reveal that Will had powers. I loved Volume 1. So now let's move on to Volume 2. This is the most divisive volume of the season, where I think that people in general just didn't really like Volume 2 that much. Like, it got a lot of hate online as soon as it came out. To be totally honest with you, I don't get it, because I actually liked Volume 2. I didn't make, like, a short about this or anything on my channel, but I got a lot of the criticism, but also, I was a fan of Volume 2, and I felt like I was going against the entire crowd in being a fan of Volume 2. It's not as good as Volume 1. It has problems. I think the biggest problem with Volume 2 of this season is the fact that it feels like there is way too much exposition between characters, where, like, there are several scenes per episode in Volume 2 where characters are devising plans, and in order to do it, they're, like, grabbing things around the room and being like, okay, so imagine this is Vecna, okay, and this is the Mind Flayer, and this is 11, and we need these two to fight, and we need this person to do this thing, and it's like, there were way too many scenes like that, where people are just, like, grabbing things and doing these demonstrations that I thought it just kind of got very ridiculous and annoying. And then, like, another problem that I have with Season 5, Volume 2 is that I feel like there are too many fake out death moments where they keep convincing you that characters are in danger, but also kind of pulling it out from under you and suddenly being like, no, this character was actually fine. The main moment that's like that is Jonathan and Nancy, when you think that they actually are about to kill them off, like when they're in this room and everything is melting around them. And then, as it turns out, they didn't die because the liquid that was melting just solidified somehow. And then also, like, the sequence in the hospital with Lucas and Robin and all of them, I thought that that was a little bit of, like, a chicken out moment. Same with when Vecna was about to kill Max. And like the characters got out of those moments in reasonable ways sometimes, like especially the Max one. I actually like that Will came in and saved her at the last second. That made sense. With Lucas and Robin and Vicky in the hospital, it's a little bit more of a stretch that Karen came in and just blew up the Demodogs, but still, I can accept it. With Jonathan and Nancy, that was a real chicken out moment where, like, they did just pull that out of their... I'm not going to continue with that sentence, but, like, the liquid just solidifies, like, what made it solidify? What was that liquid? Like, it was a little bit of a weird moment where I was like, okay, clearly they're just too scared to actually kill off these characters, but they want to keep putting us in situations where we think, oh my gosh, it's about to happen, this character's about to die. And so, yeah, I had a problem with that. Those are my two major problems with Volume 2. Outside of that, I didn't get all of the hate. Like, I thought that the reveals about the Upside Down that we got in Volume 2 were awesome, where, like, you get this big reveal that this whole time the Upside Down has been a wormhole to another dimension, and this wormhole is surrounded by just this infinite void of nothingness, and the only thing separating the characters from that void when they're in the Upside Down is a big wall. Like, that was interesting to me. I really liked that reveal. I liked the entire sequence where Max and Holly escape from Camazotz. I thought it was epic. It was satisfying. I really loved the moment where Max reunites with Lucas. That had me actually kind of tearing up. I just, like, loved that entire sequence. I didn't really get why people had a problem with it. I get that there is a kind of silly moment where Max and Holly stop to talk before they go through the portals to escape, but also it made sense why they had to stop to talk. Like, Max had to tell Holly, you can't go through this portal, you gotta find your own. Another thing that I really liked about Volume 2, and I didn't really get all of the criticism for it, is the Jonathan and Nancy scene. A lot of people really hated on that scene because they said that it didn't feel like a breakup scene. And I totally disagree. Like, when people online were saying, wait, that was a breakup scene? I didn't even realize that was a breakup scene. That's bad writing. My response was, no, it was a breakup scene. I thought it was obvious that it's a breakup scene. Like, maybe I am in the minority here. Actually, I know I'm in the minority. But, like, they unproposed to each other. They called their relationship suffocating. Like, it felt like that was very clearly them saying, we can't be with each other because the only thing we actually have in common is this shared trauma, and that's not enough anymore. And I actually loved that. I thought that it was a super well-written scene. It is the most that I have cared about Jonathan since season 1. And then I also really loved the fact that, like, Nancy straight up said to Jonathan, I'm not leaving you to be with Steve. Like, Steve was never really an option for me because, like, that didn't work out in the past. We want very different things. And I thought that actually made me like the love triangle stuff more because that's a plot line that I've always kind of been iffy on. Yeah, I really liked the Jonathan and Nancy scene a lot. Even though I think they chickened out, they probably should have killed them off there, I still really liked that scene a lot. And the other thing that I gotta defend about Volume 2, I liked the coming out scene. A lot of people really didn't. A lot of people called it cringy, unnecessary. A lot of people called it a lot of things. But for me, I liked that scene. I get that some of the dialogue was awkward and cringy, but also, obviously, that dialogue would be awkward and cringy. It's a 15-year-old trying to tell everyone he knows that he's gay. He's not going to have like an amazing prepared speech. It's awkward because it's supposed to be awkward. He's like a little bit worried about it and tripping over his words because he's supposed to be. That's just how people work. And so I was very confused with all of the criticism for that scene. I thought it was a great scene. I do admit I don't think everybody needed to be there. Like, Mr. Clark was in the room when Will came out as gay, and that's a little bit odd. I don't think he needed to be in the room to hear that, but I don't know. I still thought it was a good scene. Yeah, I liked Volume 2 for the most part. I liked the big moments. There were a few things in there that I thought were a little bit iffy. Once again, I don't like that they keep chickening out with killing characters and all of that stuff, but it was still a good volume in my opinion, and I thought a lot of the hate was unnecessary. So now we make it to the series finale. I thought it was good. Did I think it could have been better? Yes, 100%. The finale of Stranger Things, I think, is kind of the episode of this season where I get all of the criticism, like literally every piece of criticism I understand, but I also really liked the finale for a lot of reasons. I do admit it has problems. Overall, the finale was probably the safest way they possibly could have ended the show, where they don't really face a lot of opposition on their journey. They're just kind of going into the Upside Down, going into Dimension X, fighting Vecna and the Mind Flayer, killing Vecna and the Mind Flayer. None of the main characters die except for Callie, who I mean, I get that they did, in fact, end up killing off somebody, but also it was the safest option for them to kill off. Like, she was the character who nobody really gave a crap about, to be totally honest with you. And so, like, yeah, it's a safe finale. I wish they faced a little bit more hardship. I wish there were, like, a few more moments in there where there was actual tension and you were actually unsure if they were going to be able to win and beat Vecna. But at the end of the day, I didn't dislike the final fight. I thought it was cool. I thought the kaiju monster was cool. I liked the way that Vecna got defeated. I liked the fact that Joyce was the one who got to kill Vecna, which I did not see coming, but I liked it. It was cool. And then I like Eleven's sacrifice. So this is the big, I guess the big swing, I would say, is they do kind of kill off Eleven at the end of this season. I say kind of, and I'll get to that in a minute, but Eleven does make the sacrifice. She chooses to stay in the Upside Down and die with the rest of the Upside Down and Dimension X and all of that. I really liked that. I thought that that was cool. I think it makes sense for her to be the one to make the sacrifice because everything started because of 11. It makes sense that 11 has to go with everything else. Like, it makes sense that she has to die along with Vecna and the Mind Flayer and all of the other monsters. And I really, really liked the goodbyes that she has with both Hopper and Mike. Like, both of those moments kind of had me tearing up, where, like, just her telling Hopper, I have to be the one to make this choice. I have to make this decision. You can't take it away from me. Like, that entire conversation had me tearing up. Like, I really love David Harbour and Millie Bobby Brown's performances in that scene. And then the goodbye with Mike also had me tearing up, which is great because I feel like Mike is a character who throughout the past few seasons of this show, I felt like he's been significantly underutilized. But in this season, I actually did really like the way that they used him as kind of the leader of the group once again. He doesn't necessarily like have any big character arc or anything in this season, but they still used him well. And like I said, that moment where he says goodbye to Elle, I thought was just super powerful and emotional. And so I did really like the decision to kill off Elle. Now, I will say, I once again think Elle is kind of the safest character that they could have killed off apart from Callie, because like, Elle is kind of the one who started everything, like I said, so killing her just makes sense. It's not that bold of a move. But still, I really liked it. I thought it was a good decision. I loved the epilogue of Stranger Things. I thought that, like, everything that happened in the epilogue was perfect. Hopper proposing to Joyce was super emotionally satisfying. The kids playing D&D one more time was awesome. I love the fact that Max did in fact end up playing D&D at least once by the end of the show. I really like the fact that she was there. I loved that final conversation with the teenagers, and I think choosing to end this show on the note of the kids are graduating and going their separate ways, when they know that so many like kids and teenagers have grown up with this show, that was brilliant. And like the end of the show, like it did kind of get me to tear up, especially on a personal level, because like I just graduated a few months ago. I graduated in 2025, and so like seeing them graduate and go their separate ways, like that hit me hard on a personal level. And then the other big thing about the epilogue of this show is that they give you a glimmer of hope that maybe Elle is still alive. Mike has a theory that she actually escaped from the Upside Down. Callie was just creating an illusion, and Elle is actually safe somewhere waiting to one day reunite with them potentially. And I liked that. I get where a lot of people are coming from online when they say that that kind of feels like a chicken out moment too, because they kill Elle, but they don't really kill Elle. But also, I like it because it leaves it up to you on whether or not Elle is really dead. You can choose to believe Mike's theory, or you can accept the fact that Elle probably did die in the Upside Down. And that's kind of where I'm at, to be totally honest with you. If you ask me if I believe Elle is alive at the end of this show, I don't. I think that it doesn't make sense for Callie to have survived long enough to project anything. Like, she was shot at a fatal area. She looked pretty dead when Hopper was going into the room to get Elle. I think that it's all just a fantasy, but it also could not be. And I think that that is a really cool option to give the audience. I really liked the ending of Stranger Things. I thought every ending that every character got was earned. I thought that there were a lot of great emotionally powerful moments in that finale. I do think the finale was safe. I'm not crazy about their hesitance to really have consequences in this show where, like, nobody really dies in the end except for the safest options possible to kill off. I also kind of think that that's okay in a way where, like, I don't think Stranger Things is a show that necessarily needed to end with a lot of character deaths. One or two to, like, really hammer home that there are actual stakes probably would have been nice. But it's still not really that kind of show. Like, this was a coming-of-age show about a bunch of kids going on this crazy adventure together. And so I don't think it's a wrong decision to not kill off a lot of characters. It's just a very safe one. I thought the finale of Stranger Things was an incredibly safe ending, but it was satisfying. It's not going to go down as one of my favorite TV show finales ever or anything. I think most of my favorite TV shows of all time ended better than Stranger Things, but I'm not unhappy with the ending of this show that we got. I think season 5 was good. I will give it an 8 out of 10 overall. Is it the best season of the show? No, not even close. Is it the worst season of the show? I don't know. That's a question for another video. I'm going to rank all of the seasons, but currently I actually don't know what last place is going to be. I haven't decided yet. So I guess stay tuned for that. Overall, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what were your thoughts on the final season of Stranger Things, and see ya, movie fans.